So hey guys, what's up? In case you don't know me and this is the first time you watch a video on my channel, my name is Pierre Kleinhouse. I'm an illustrator and designer from Israel, and I've been working as an illustrator for the past 5 years now. I work mainly on illustration work that is connected to branding and graphic design, and these are just some examples of the work that I do today. And on today's talk, I want to talk about finding your illustration style, which is a very big question, and it's something that I get a lot of questions about, and I was definitely thinking about it a lot as a student and even later on in my career. So yeah, it really bothered me as a student, and I definitely remember working on illustrations for class in the university while studying illustration and graphic design. And I remember, coming up with an illustration, feeling like it's the most amazing illustration I ever made, and that this is it, this is my illustration style, this is how I'm gonna draw from now on. And a couple of weeks later, work on another class, a different class, come up with a different illustration style and technique, and again fall in love with this new illustration, and again think that this is it, this is my style, I found my style and I'm gonna draw just like this. So I was definitely confused as a student, and I felt like this topic really bothered me, and I couldn't find any answers. And whenever I actually looked for answers online or asked my teachers, I will always get the same answer, which is just draw a lot. And I mean, this was so annoying, and this used to really piss me off as a student. But actually nowadays, when I think about it, there is some truth to this saying, and it's definitely helpful when you draw a lot, and the more you draw, you can actually learn and understand better what your style is all about. But I did want to get more answers as a student, and I do want to give you more answers now and share with you some of the things that I learned about this topic in my own personal journey. So hopefully I can help you out with some tips or ideas or just things you can think about, and maybe it will help you develop your style. So this is what I'm gonna do today. In this talk, I'm gonna try and share the things that I know about illustration style, and hopefully this will be helpful. So this talk has 3 different parts. In the first part, I'm gonna talk about why do you actually need an illustration style. In the second part, I'm gonna talk about how to actually make your illustration style unique. And then in the third part, I'm gonna share my own personal story and share with you how I actually developed my own personal style. So yeah, let's get started with the first one, and it's about why do you actually need an illustration style. So it's more of like a bigger question of why is this important, and the truth is it's not that important, and you can definitely be a successful illustrator without having like a very specific style. And there's a lot of different things you can do where it's actually the opposite. And for example, if you work in a graphic design and branding studio, or maybe an animation studio, most chances are this studio has a lot of different clients working with the same studio. So it's actually a good thing to have a big range of different styles that you can use for the different clients. So I'm definitely not saying that you have to have your own specific and unique style, but I do think it's helpful when you are a freelancer. And sometimes as a freelancer, it can be really helpful to be known and famous for just one thing. So for example, these are my illustrations, and I came up with this new style that I was experimenting with, which is all black and white and animals and some typography. And once I published this work, I actually got a request from a client asking for the same style for this illustration or t-shirt. And once I published this illustration, I got asked to do another illustration in the same style again, because I already had these 2 in my portfolio, and it made sense for new clients to come and ask for the same style. So being famous for one style can be really, really helpful in case you are a freelancer and you want to attract a specific type of clients. But I want to try and just switch the perspective for a moment and take a look at it from the perspective of the client. So just for the example, let's imagine that this is actually our client, and this guy has a punk rock band they're very successful. They are going on tour and they're making new music and they're very busy and successful, and they need a poster for their next music festival. And then this client does exactly the same as all clients. He goes online to look for a designer or an illustrator that can help him out. And he goes to Google and he goes to Instagram. Maybe he's familiar with some of the design platforms, and he goes to search on Behance and Dribbble. And eventually he ends up with, finding some illustrators and looking at their portfolios. So just for the example, let's say that this is the portfolio that our client finds online, and it's actually 5 different illustrations from 5 different artists. But just for the example, let's say it's the same guy. So obviously you can see the style is all over the place. Each illustration is very, very different. And when a client look at this portfolio, he's gonna have a hard time actually to understand what is he gonna get. I mean, what type of poster, what kind of style is he gonna get when he's gonna commission this illustrator. So this is a bit confusing, and let's say our client keeps on searching online and he finds the work of Jeff Soto, which is one of my favorite artists. And just by looking at these 3 posters, you can already have an easier time understanding, what is the look and feel that you're gonna get. These illustrations are very dark. The colors are very dark and vivid. The imagery is kind of scary and weird. There's lots of skulls, weird creatures, and overall I feel like it's very clear what I'm gonna get when if I'm gonna commission Jeff Soto and ask for a new poster design. I feel like I know the direction in which the poster is gonna go and the look and feel and everything. So obviously, having a clear style, a specific style, can be really, really helpful for the client in this case. And what's even better is the fact that you can see that Jeff Soto already worked with other bands like Metallica and Faith No More. So this is amazing. I mean, this artist actually work in the specific niche that our client is looking for. So I think this is a great example of why sometimes some artists gets all the work while other artists doesn't get any work. So, I mean, when you look at it from the client's perspective, I think you need to remember that our client is, most of the time, they're busy and stressed with other things. For example, our client is busy with making music and going to shows, and it doesn't know anything about graphic design, illustration. It just has this problem and it needs to be solved. It needs a poster. And obviously he's overwhelmed with options. He goes online, he finds 100 different illustrators. He doesn't know what to do, he's confused. And of course, he doesn't want to waste the money and end up with a poster that doesn't fit what the band needs. So I really think you need to remember these things and remember that the client is not your enemy. He's just busy, confused, and stressed. And sometimes this might come off as aggressive, but most of the time our clients just need to get their problem solved. And when your portfolio is clear enough, it will feel like it's not risky to work with you. It makes sense because they'll know what they're gonna get, and this way everybody's happy, I think. So this is why I think it's super important to have a clear style in your portfolio. And I do want to add just like one more note before we continue and say that, it doesn't mean that your style needs to be super, super focused. And for example, I showed you my black and white illustrations, but it's not the only illustration style that I use. I like to use colors in some of my illustrations. I like to use, cartoons and characters and make my illustrations feel more funny and cute sometimes and more surreal and weird in other times. So I do feel like it's totally fine to have a range, but at least to have some sort of a direction for everything that you do. And again, it's very personal. I mean, some other people will feel like doing just black and white work and focusing just on that is the thing that they wanna do and just be super focused. Other people like me feel like I feel like I wanna switch things up, make things more interesting and more flexible, and this is what works for me. So again, it's totally personal. Anyway, I feel like the point of why do you actually need a style is pretty clear. So let's just move on to the second part of the talk. Okay, so now let's talk about what is an illustration style and how you can actually make your illustration style more special and unique to you. So before we begin, I just want to say, you know, this is not science, and of course this is just my own personal take on this topic. So I'm sure there are different ways to look at this thing, but anyway, I try to come up with you know, different elements that can affect your style, and I came up with 4 different elements, and I want to share these with you. So the first one is all technical, and it's about the tools that you use for your illustrations. So it's very, very basic and obvious. So I'm just gonna show you one example of how, you know, working with different tools can affect your style. This is very simple and basic stuff, so I don't want to spend more time on it, but I did want to mention that. And I do think that this is like the least important part of developing your style. It's about the tools that you use, and I feel like as a student this was the only thing that I thought about, and I was always thinking about the tools. I was always thinking about this technical aspect, where the truth is it's actually just one out of these 4 elements, and it's the least important one. And I think I wasted a lot of time just thinking about this thing instead of actually focusing on the important stuff. So if you are doing the same, I hope this talk will prevent you from keep obsessing about the tools and think about other things. So anyway, yeah, let's just move on to the second element, which is all about how you actually draw and the way that you actually tell a story with your drawings. So this is a bit abstract, I guess, so I'm just going to show you some examples. So the first one is very simple. I mean, you can see how these 2 different illustrations, which are done with the same tools, and it's the same subject, it's a portrait, and the feeling is totally different just because of the way that the artists use the tools. And it's the same tools, but just using them differently tells a completely different story. And this is what I mean by how you draw and how you can actually tell a story with the way that you draw. So I think this topic is a bit overlooked, and sometimes, yeah, just thinking about it, remembering this thing can really affect your style. I think it's important. And another great example would be the work of Carter Goodrich, which is an amazing illustrator, and I really like his work. And here you can see, for example, a cover that he made for the New Yorker. And this illustration is talking about how young graduates can't find work in the market, and the industry is like full and there isn't enough job openings. And the metaphor for the market here is the subway that is just full with people. So I think it's a lovely example of how you can tell a story just with a composition. And, you know, there's such a big tension between, you know, the crowded subway and this lonely guy standing here all alone. So I think that just the composition here is so powerful that it tells a story. It makes the story more powerful. That's what I'm trying to say. And the same thing can be said about the colors. I mean, the focus of the colors is the warm colors in the student or the graduate hair, which is the only warm area in the illustration, and then everything else is very cold and uninviting, and it's these, you know, blue and purple tones in the subway. So the colors, just like the composition, really emphasize the story and makes it more powerful. So I think it's a great example of how just by, you know, the way that you draw can really tell a story and make your story more interesting. So here's another example of Carter's work, and you can see again very powerful composition, and the only white areas are the seashell here. Everything else is not like 100% white, and the red, like the powerful red in the child dress. And so the colors really attract your attention to this area, and the composition is basically doing the same. And even the character design is very unique and powerful, and the poses of the characters, everything tells a story, and everything makes the story more powerful. So I really like these examples, and I think that eventually, you know, what makes Carter Goodrich's style so exceptional, it's not the tools that he uses, it's not about, you know, which pens or which brushes did he use, it's about the way that he used colors and the way that he used the composition to tell a more meaningful story. So I think that eventually, you know, I'm trying to break it down and make a tip for you out of it. So whenever you feel like you're stuck with your illustration work and you feel like it's not working for you, try to think about how to add meaning to your illustration with things like your composition. You know, maybe you can try a different composition, which is more interesting. Maybe you can tell a better story just with your color palette, or maybe your line work can be more exciting. All of these different elements can really affect your style and make your illustration better. So try to think about these topics whenever you are working on a new illustration. And hopefully this second element of how you draw gave you some ideas and things you can think about. Okay. Third one is about what are you actually drawing, and it's about your subjects. So I think a good example for this would be, a classic example would be the work of Michelangelo, which is super famous for drawing naked guys. Even though like this is not why he's so great, I mean, being focused on a specific subject, maybe, I mean, it might be really, really helpful for you. It might make you really good at a specific thing that you're always drawing. I mean, and I think some artists are just super famous for focusing just on one subject, and I think maybe it will help you out as well. For example, Tegan White is always drawing, it's not the same subject, but she's always focusing on animals and plants and flowers and stuff like that. And Phoenix Chan, for example, is always drawing cats, like 100% cats. So I'm not saying, you know, you need to draw just 100% just one subject forever and just, for example, draw cats for the rest of your life. I think this example is a bit too extreme, and I wouldn't want to draw just one subject for the rest of my life. But I think it's good to focus, and maybe when you try to think about it, it's almost like it's the same thing with restaurants, for example. Most of like the good restaurants out there are the restaurants that are known for a specific cuisine. For example, Italian food or French food, or maybe it's a fusion of two cuisines, but that's it. And most of like the shitty restaurants where you don't want to eat is the places where they have everything on the menu, from Italian food to American food, and you know, everything in one huge menu. Because when you do like 100 different dishes, it doesn't make any sense. There's no way you can make really good food with all of your dishes. So I do think that eventually what I'm trying to say out of all of these examples is that you need to focus on a specific niche or focus on a specific subject. And even if it's for a short amount of time, I think it will be helpful. And what I mean by niche is you can focus on things like just drawing and designing for beer labels, or you can focus on children books, like illustrated children books, or making illustrations for gaming, for the gaming industry, or making illustrations for animations. It doesn't really matter. You can pick your own niche and just focus on it, or pick a subject and focus on it. It's the same, and I think it could be really, really helpful. And I already talked about it in a previous video of mine, and I really encourage you to try out the 100 days challenge, which basically means you pick a niche or like a specific subject that you really want to get better at, and then for 100 days you draw 1 hour a day and you focus just on that. So for example, just beer labels, you draw and design beer labels for 100 days, and I think it can have a great impact on your portfolio, and it can help you attract clients that will come from this specific niche once you get a little bit known for it. And then you can change things up and do something completely different. But focusing is the key, and this is what I want you to take out of the third element. So yeah, let's move on to the last one. So the last one is all about why are you actually drawing? It's about your passion and your audience. And of course, you know, we're all in it for the money. We all want to make a ton of money and be filthy rich. But I'm actually talking about something else, and it's, you know, it's about your passion. You know, what makes you excited about drawing? What is it that you want to draw and create? And what type of people you want to connect with? try to think about your audience and what makes you who you are, what makes you weird and special. I think that these questions can really help you understand and develop your unique style, because eventually your style is very personal. It's all about your personality and who you are, and making it clear and communicating them as much as you can from yourself and your personality with your illustrations. So I think the best way, it's nothing fancy, it's nothing complicated. It's all about thinking about the topics that you are interested in, the things that make you excited, and then try to connect the dots. And you can almost come up with, it's almost like a DNA. You can come up with your illustration DNA based on your experiences and the things that you like and the things you are passionate about. So I think that eventually, this is the big question. This is the big why question, and you need to answer it yourself. Nobody can tell you what's the right answer here, but it's all about what you like and what you're excited about. And this is how you can find your own illustration DNA. And if you can apply this DNA to all of your illustrations, eventually it will create a style that is unique to you. And this brings me to the last part of the talk today, which is about how I personally came up with my own illustration style. So I want to try and share with you, my own personal story and tell you all about it. So I want to begin with this very embarrassing picture of mine, and this is me and my brother, and we're very excited about this bear. And I think I was working on a different talk about illustration like a few years ago, and I found this picture, and I remember like finding this picture, and then boom, it clicked, everything connected, and everything made sense for me. I was working on this illustration at the same time, so it all made sense, and I realized that there's a huge impact from my childhood on my illustration style. And for me, this photo represents the fact that I actually grew up outside of the city. I grew up in a very small place in the countryside, and we were always like surrounded with nature, and we had a ton of animals around us when we were kids. We didn't have a bear, sadly, but we had a lot of other cool animals. So for me, my childhood, being connected to nature and animals and all that stuff, I think it's really something that is always there for me in the background whenever I draw. And you can see like most of my illustration work is connected somehow to nature and animals and stuff like that. So once I found this picture, I started to think about other things that influence my style, and I tried to come up with and find the things that impact my illustration style. And then I realized that even though I grew up in Israel, my mother is from Belgium, and we always had a lot of Belgian comics in our house, and we had all of the Tintin books in our house. And even though I couldn't read and I didn't really understand French, I just looked at the pictures and looked at all of these books. And when I think about it today, it has a huge impact on the way that I use colors nowadays and the way I draw characters, and especially the more colorful and fun and cartoony style of my illustrations. I do have a range of different styles, so I feel like this side, these type of works are really, really inspired by and based on the works and the style of Tintin. And even though it's a bit different, I definitely feel the connection. So this definitely had a huge impact on the way that I draw even today. And when I think about it, I do have some more influences. So slightly later, when I was a teenager, I discovered Dragon Ball Z for the first time, and it totally blew my mind. We didn't have any manga and anime. There wasn't any anime, like Japanese anime on TV. We have mostly like American and European stuff on TV back then. So I actually downloaded the episodes like super slowly from the internet, because it was a long time ago. So I remember it just felt completely different. The plot, the characters, the story, the colors, the music, everything is completely different and unique, and it has this huge impact on me as a teenager, and I was obsessed with it. And then because of Dragon Ball Z, I actually discovered this whole Japanese manga and anime world, and it opened the door for me. And I guess these are the things that I was mostly into as a teenager and, you know, slightly later. So Naruto and Death Note and movies like Akira and Ghost in the Shell, these things really had a huge impact on me growing up. And eventually these are the things that actually pushed me towards studying graphic design and illustration. So it definitely had a big impact on my illustration work. And then as a student, I actually discovered amazing artists like Jeff Soto, which I already showed you a little bit before, and other artists like Yeah Studio and Macbeth and Drew Millward. And all of these artists, I discovered their work as a student, and they had a huge impact on me, and I felt like it's almost like a lost family. I felt like I really connect with this type of illustrations, and this is my home. This is like the place I want to connect with. So eventually I actually realized that, you know, most of these artists, all of these artists actually use screen printing in some of their work, and that's why the work is usually just like one or two different colors. And then I actually realized there's a screen printing workshop in my university, so I actually got to practice it a little bit. And these are actually the two big images here are actually prints from the screen printing workshop, and these two are digital works, but again they're based on this approach of working with just like two or just one color. So I feel like, you know, looking at these artists trying, you know, to make screen printing works in the workshop, and everything combined together with my love to manga and anime, everything together connected into the beginning of the style of my illustrations. So this is like the very beginning. I was still a student making these, but I felt like this is the first time things started to connect, and I felt like I have a direction that I want to explore with my work. So again, these are from the last year in the academy at the university, and these are digital works, but again I feel like it's in the same direction, and you can again see there's a big influence from Japan. And as I was working on these, I actually discovered the amazing works from Japanese artists from 400 years ago, which is like the woodblock prints from Japan, which is something I didn't know before, and it completely like blew my mind, and again connected with my love to manga and anime from my teenage years. So all of these things together, I guess, influenced my work. And eventually, you know, when I look at it now, I mean, this is my DNA. This is how I came up with my DNA for illustration work. All of these things together, eventually it's a mix of everything that I like and everything that inspires me and I'm passionate about. So these are still works from the last year in the university. And, you know, I kept on working. I kept working as a freelancer. I kept practicing my skills, and with time my works got better and better. And sometimes you can see there's like a lot of Japanese influence in my work. Sometimes you can see there's more animals and nature and these type of inspirations into my work. So I mean, I don't use the same amount of different references in all of my work, but it's always there, it's always in the background, and I always try to mix between all of these things that I'm really inspired by and create new and interesting work. And I also, yeah, you know, and of course I want to try and explore new things and try new directions from time to time and make my work even more crazy and unique with time. So these are like just some examples of my recent works. And eventually, you know, what I just show you it's a lot of different works, and it feels like it's super fast. You know, I just went over everything in like 2 minutes, but it's actually 5 years of work, and it's a process. It's a long process. You know, developing your style. It's more of a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not about your next one illustration. It's never the case. You know, never think that, okay, the next illustration, this is it. I'm gonna find my style. it never works like this. It's more of a process. It's a long process. And once you create 50 or 100 different illustrations, you can actually look back and understand what worked, what didn't work, and focus on, you know, the things that you are the most passionate about. I don't feel like I actually have my own style yet. I feel like my style is very all over the place, very messy. But I guess, you know, nowadays a lot of people ask me about it, so I guess it does have a certain direction, because other people see it more clearly than me, I guess. Maybe it's easier to look at a style from afar, and it's always hard to judge your own personal work, I guess. So I do feel like I have like a certain direction, but I definitely feel like I need to keep on exploring, keep on creating, and learn so much. So yeah, it's always a process. It's a never-ending process, I guess. And this is where I am today. And well, to sum things up, these are the 4 different elements that I think can be really, really helpful for you guys to think about when you're working on your illustrations. And I mean, you get to choose on what to focus. You don't have to focus on everything all at the same time. And, you know, take your time, try focusing on maybe just one of these and see if it helps. And if there's only one tip I can give you from this entire talk, it would be to just don't focus on the first one. Don't focus on the tools and the technical side. I think it's the least important one, especially at the beginning of your process. If you're still searching for your style, I think you need to focus on the other 3 elements, and you'll get so much out of it than just focusing on the tools. So this is it. I really hope this video was helpful for you guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments if you like it, if you have any other suggestions and things that help you out with your illustration style. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So yeah, comment, like this video, and don't forget to subscribe and support the channel by buying t-shirts and prints from the shop. And that's it, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.